Alright, so this video comes highly requested. This is going to be a game changer for you, especially if you're a new teacher and you're teaching in a self-contained setting, or you're going to be working with other adults. Like, you've got to master this in order to have a good year. So you don't want to miss a thing. So hey, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel from the Behavior Check-In. In case you're new here, I am a behavior teacher. I almost wanted to say K through 2, but my position has now changed. I am now a behavior support teacher that's helping teachers. That's kind of a long thing I talked about in another video. But anyway, I work with behavior and help teachers. Short end of the story. But today's video, we're going to be talking about how to work with paraprofessionals. This can be like the best part of your job, or one of the best parts of your job, because obviously with the kids is right up there. But this can be one of the best parts of your job, or it can be the worst part of your job, depending on how you handle it. So you're gonna probably want to take some notes. So before we get started, a little bit of why I'm kind of an authority on this subject. A little head bob, I guess. I don't know. That's how I'm showing you that I'm the authority. But how I know a lot on this subject is I was a paraprofessional before I became a teacher. So I know what it's like to be on that end. I also even worked as a substitute before I became a paraprofessional. And then of course, I've been a teacher in self-contained settings. I've worked in behavior settings. I have worked in more life skill settings. I have worked in ASD settings. I have worked in preschool settings. So lots of experience, different situations on how you work with paraprofessionals. And there is definitely one big take home about this. Like, it is so incredibly critical to make sure that you work well with the adults that you're teamed up with. If you are not a cohesive team, you're going to have a really bad school year. Like, that's really the only way I can be honest with you about it. I don't want to sugarcoat it. So this is really important for any teacher, new teams. So let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to kind of give you the do's and the don'ts. So first off, big do. Make sure that you keep the lines of communication open with your paraprofessionals. Before I would start, I would always sit down, brought in usually a yummy treat. We'd sit down and talk before school started, get to know each other, and I would always let them know that we are a team, that their input is valued, and that I want us to always be able to communicate. But with that, if one of us did something that the other person didn't agree with, we were going to talk about it, not in front of the kids. These kids know that they can work you, and if they see that there is some sort of like disagreement on a topic or how you do things, they're going to play mom and dad with you. They're going to work you against each other. So you have to keep a united front. And I tell my paraprofessionals this, especially if they're new and they haven't done this before. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily do this with a more experienced paraprofessional because they know, but I do kind of gloss over it so they know where I stand, that if we have an issue with each other, and you're going to have it, you're going to have different viewpoints on how you handle a behavior or how you handle something, that you talk about it when the kids are not around. Usually in every position I've had, we've had a few minutes before the kids come in the morning. We have a few minutes at the end of the day. We have time where we can debrief, especially if we had a really explicit behavior, things that were kind of just confrontational or conflicting views. We definitely make sure we talk about it, debrief what went well, what didn't. And I let them know right up front that that was my expectation, is that we were going to be very clear and talk about things. And if we had a major issue, we were going to debrief after it and just kind of figure out how we could be better on the same team. I explain this to them because, especially in behavior, the best preventative measure that you can have in the classroom is to make sure you have a plan for all the situations that are coming up. So that was really important for them to know kind of like what our plan was, what our flow chart or protocol, how we were going to handle it. And then of course, I always let them know in the behavior classroom, especially, but any classroom, because you're going to deal with behaviors no matter what in special education, that if they were getting overwhelmed with a certain student, they needed to verbalize that in a way, or sometimes we just be honest and be like, hey, staff switch, or I need to take a walk, or anything. Sometimes you just have to say that, but just to let them know if you were getting burned out on a child's behavior. And I let them know that it was okay if they got burned out on a child's behavior, because we're human and we're all going to get burned out. and they needed to know that I was okay with that and I wasn't going to judge them for it, because honestly, I was going to get probably burned out on a child's behavior and I was going to need them to take over too. So we wanted to have those clear lines of communication. We discussed kind of like what our non-negotiables were in terms of what we expected to do with our jobs. I also made sure that they understood like kind of like what my pet peeves were. If I don't have a lot of pet peeves, I'll be honest, but I know some people are a little bit more particular, and I did definitely stress like cell phone usage was a big deal with me. I wanted them to be present with the kids while they were working with the kids, while we were out at recess. That was not cell phone time. In my particular positions, I've had all of my assistants have time for cell phones because they have breaks built in. They have a lunch break. They have time that they can go scroll. We're all human. We want to check our phones, but to not do it with the kids. So I kind of told them that that was my non-negotiable. And then they let me know if there were certain things that were issues for them, because I wanted to have that clear communication and those boundaries set right in front. And I think, I've seen people hand out binders. You can do that. I don't know. This is just my personal opinion. We get a handbook. Paraprofessionals get handbooks in every district I've had. It's the same faculty staff handbook about clothing, dress codes, common sense like stuff. And I don't know if I necessarily need to give them another one. I mean, the people that you're working with. I personally would have felt kind of, insulted if someone handed me a binder. But I think it's just the people that you work with. I did, like I said, in the past, I've given like a list of things, kind of like our duty expectations and what they expected from me and what I expected from them. But I don't think you necessarily have to do that if you have a good working relationship with people. That's just a personal preference. I trust them as professionals, and I like to treat my paraprofessionals the way that I want to be treated as a teacher. I feel like if I had a principal come in and do all of that stuff with me, I would feel insulted. So I really try not to do that kind of stuff. We just talk about it, and we talk a lot, and we build those relationships with each other so that we feel comfortable. So the next thing too is let them know exactly what their duties are. I've done zoning plans, and essentially a zoning plan tells the paraprofessional, tells me it's like a lesson plan, to be 100% honest, but it lets them know what they're doing, what students they're working with, and what IEP goals they're working on at that time, or what like social skills they're working on at that time, what my expectations are for them. I will let them know like the level of independence I want on the project or the activity that they're doing, because you have to be clear about that. And I'll be honest, I've had times where I'll hand them off something and I wanted to take it as a grade, and then maybe they overhelped the kid and I can't. So I'm always working to be upfront and say, hey, this is going to be a grade. I want to see what they can do independently. I also make sure that they are aware of the students' accommodations and why they have those accommodations and what they look like. If I'm having them teach a skill that they aren't familiar with, for instance, I was teaching touch math to a student that I felt like needed that multisensory math support. I modeled it, and so they could see how that I wanted it taught. You can't expect someone who hasn't had the same level of education you do to know all the strategies that you know. That's just not realistic. So I always tell them that, if I went too fast or you need to see it again, feel free, because I've been doing this a long time and sometimes I forget. Same with like how I expect them to handle behaviors. All the paraprofessionals I've worked with, because their behavior, have gotten training through the district on how to handle it. But, kind of our protocol on what I need them to do, and letting them know up front that if I talk very short to you in the middle of a behavior, it's not about you. It's about it's kind of a crisis situation. So we're just going to be quick and abrupt, so they understand that and that feelings aren't hurt. And if they did feel like their feelings were hurt, we will talk about that later. So another thing that I think is really important with your paraprofessionals is to make sure that you show them that you appreciate them. I literally could not do my job without the paraprofessionals I've worked with. They are just amazing, and it doesn't have to be like money, a lot of money and that sort of stuff. I think just showing them that you appreciate them. Like, for instance, I would tell my assistants when we were in a situation and they felt like they couldn't leave or go anywhere because maybe we, for a lunch or whatever. And I'm like, no, you're going on your lunch. you are going on your lunch. And I always make sure that they get their breaks, they get their lunches, and I explain to them that it's important for them to have that time and model that self-care is important and that I appreciate them and that I know that their job is hard. I don't ever ask my assistants to do anything that I'm not willing to do. I don't ever saddle them with a kid that I'm not willing to work with. I don't ever saddle them with, some sort of behavior intervention that's very emotionally draining that I'm not willing to do. When I worked with preschool, or I worked in more life support situations, where I worked in more life skills situations, I didn't make them do all the toileting and all the diapering. Like, I was in there as much as they were. We just took turns. And I think that's just the fairest way to do it. People really value you. Think about how we are with our administrators. When someone's willing to get in there and get their hands dirty and do the things that aren't fun, it really builds that morale. So don't ever think that you're above something. I think it's really also important to value their ideas. I really think that some of my paraprofessionals have some amazing ideas, and I was so bogged down with data and IEPs and paperwork and parents and all of that a lot of times I would forget the fun activities that make school fun. And so I was very honest with both of my paraprofessionals, and I let them plan certain things. I mean, I had to teach the curriculum, but like if we were on a certain standard and they had an activity that would go along with that standard and they wanted to prep it and that sort of thing, I let them go with it. We ran with it. I totally included them in on the planning because they're valued members of my team, and they can see things I don't see. And they helped me make some beautiful Mother's Day gifts this year and some great activities. And I usually ask them to make sure that they give me a materials list because I don't want them constantly going out and buying things. That's the only thing, is some of them, they're like us. They want to do the best for the kids, and they can tend to put more in it than they should, and they don't make enough money. We don't make enough money as teachers. Like, I tried to get the material list of things that they need to help them out, but I love that a lot of times that they'll take the lead on that, because I just don't sometimes have the mental capacity for the cutesy crafts that go into elementary school that are important, because your kid may be in a behavior unit, but those parents still want a Mother's Day gift. That stuff means a lot. Their kid's still going through all those milestones. They may just be in a different class. So I really appreciate when my paraprofessionals take the lead on that sort of thing. So that's pretty much my big list of how to work with paraprofessionals. If you have any tips that you liked, share them down below. If you have any questions, share them down below. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this whole video. I plan on doing a lot more. I want to keep them kind of brief videos to help new teachers. And then if you have any further questions on what I talked about, I can do an additional video and kind of expand on that topic. That I'm going to leave you. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and share this video out. It really helps support my channel. I really want to reach as many teachers as possible, and the algorithm puts me out for more people if you like, subscribe, and share. So thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.
Morning, like a warning. Could have slept here for days.